There's one super important key to making perfect French onion soup, and it's the same thing for making perfect braised short ribs. I'll show you what it is. Welcome to Lawyer in the Kitchen. Today we're going to make French onion soup and braised short ribs. This is a really simple recipe, but there's one thing that you have to do when cooking both of these dishes, and we're going to put them together. But the one thing you've got to do is they have to cook slowly. These onions have got to cook for about 40 minutes on low heat, low to medium low, and mostly low, to actually caramelize them so that they taste fantastic. You don't want to cook them like you make them for a hamburger, unless you go to one of my best hamburgers that has actually caramelized onions. And the short ribs, the same thing. We're going to cook those at 325 for at least 3 to 3.5 hours after we've browned them. So the ingredients for the short ribs are, I've got 2.5 pounds. You won't need that many, but you can have these and eat this with something else. These are nice and big. We'll probably only need really one of these, but we're going to go ahead and make these. And we're going to brown them in a pan, the same pan, a nice stock pot. We're going to put some onions with those, some carrots, some celery, some bay leaves. I'm going to make the beef broth. And the beef broth is going to cook separately. I've got a beef base. I'm going to cook that with some carrots, some onions, and celery. And then we're going to cut these onions nice and thinly on a mandolin. You want about 4 pounds of onions. We're going to use yellow onions. I saw a recipe where they use Spanish onions. I thought this was funny because you're making French soup with Spanish onions, but I don't know. You can do it. As far as the cheese topping, or the gratinée, which just means, in French, it just means it's a brown topping. It doesn't have to be cheese, but in this instance, it will be. We're going to use we're going to actually grate our Parmesan. I'm going to use Swiss. I'm going to cut that in and dice it up. And then I'm going to use provolone. Now, everybody seems to use Gruyere, but not everybody quite does. And so I like the provolone. We've tried this at home. It's better, and I like the slices. We're not going to use shredded. We're going to use slice because I want it to hang over the bowl, because that's part of it. And some people say you just do that for looks, but it's not just something that looks good. It's kind of fun to eat the pieces that come off that are on the side of the bowl when you get done with the soup. So it's like an extra little pleasure there. Anyhow, we're going to start putting this together. I'm going to use French bread. We're going to put that in the oven to top this. Then we're going to put it in the broiler, brown it all together. Make sure we put once these short ribs are done, we're going to shred that up and put that in the soup. Some say in the 1700s that French onion soup was invented by King Louis XV. He apparently was hunting and is away from the palace, and he was at a hunting lodge, and all he had was onions, butter, and champagne, and decided to make a soup, which became French onion soup. Now, other people say that the Duke of Lorraine, who was the father of the Queen of France, in about the same time period, had the soup in an inn in the Champagne region of France, and then brought the recipe to the Palace of Versailles. Whatever the origin is, the onion soup is indeed French. All right, first thing we're going to do is get our short ribs, and these are beef short ribs. Again, this is 2.5 pounds. You don't need that much. One of these, the big one right here, probably 1/2 pound's plenty for all that we're going to use. But I'm going to go ahead and get my oil going as soon as I can. Here it is. All right. We get our oil going, and that's about 2 tablespoons. And meanwhile, while the oil's getting warm, we're going to go ahead and salt this liberally. And we really want to cook this on all the sides. We want to brown this nicely, and this will be tasty. Now, again, the way to make these right and tender and tasty, fall off the bone, which you got to have if you're going to put them in the French onion soup, is for them to cook slowly in the oven. They'll be covered. We're braising them. Braising is not boiling. It's a simmer that doesn't quite cover. We're also going to use some dry sherry, which we'll use in the soup as well, and a little bit of red wine. In fact, I'll probably use half a bottle of red wine. That's going to be the braising liquid. And we may put a little bit of the beef stock in here. I'm not gonna worry about this beef stock cooking down at all. It'll cook in here with the beef ribs. And I'm also gonna put a little bit of butter in here. And this is about 2 tablespoons. I'm gonna turn this down because I don't want to burn it. I just want to brown it. And while that's on this side, we'll go ahead and salt and pepper the other side. We'll also have some tomato paste in here. And that's not quite brown enough. Let's have a look at this. That's not quite, it's starting. Turn it back up a little bit. And the browning's simply going to caramelize the meat some, and it's going to put some fond on the bottom of the plate, on the bottom of the pot, and that will add a lot of flavor as all those little bits and brown spots come up off the bottom of the pot as it cooks. And some people say it's easier to cut these in half to peel them, but I think it's just easier to do this. Then these, I'm just going to cut these big. So the onion essentially being cut in 6 pieces. Now that looks right. These are all just right. They're looking good. So now I'm going to add the sherry, and I'm going to light it. I'm going to flambe this. There we go. Now we're flambeing it. And I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste in here. Just stir that up. Now, some people take these out. I've done that. Take the meat out. This has already deglazed the pan with the sherry. 1 medium-sized yellow onion. About 3 stalks of celery and 2 good-sized carrots. We're not going to eat any of these. These are just for flavor. All right, so we're going to put in about half a bottle of wine. This is beef stock, which I have made from beef base. This is about 3 cups. We won't use all this at all. But we're going to come close. That's good right there. That will braise. We're going to have that at 325 in the oven for about 3.5 hours. It's going to be fork tender. It's going to be falling off the bone. It's going to be fantastic. And then we're going to shred it after it cools down. We're going to start our soup in a couple of hours. All right, I've got 9 cups of beef base, now beef broth. You could be done with this, okay? You could absolutely do nothing more than get a nice beef base, make the stock, or you can buy a box, a couple cartons of the beef broth. But if you want it, and in fact, I did that the other night when I made this soup just to try this recipe, and it was really, really good. This should be just a little bit better because I'm gonna simmer this beef broth now for the same amount of time while the braised ribs are in the oven. So I'm just gonna add a couple of carrots. I've got some chopped celery, big chops. We're gonna put in an onion just like we did for the braised ribs. I'm going to add some thyme and a couple bay leaves. Nothing else in this. We're just going to simmer this now for the next 3.5 hours till we start getting ready to put this in. This will be our soup base. All right, so I'm going to use a mandolin. You could use a knife. It's fine. I can get a little bit thinner, but if I'm going to get all of these onions, and I'm going to use 5 yellow onions, medium large. To get all the way down, I'm going to wear a glove because this will absolutely stop you from cutting your fingers. I mean, and this is sharp, but you don't want to waste any of the onion. If you're cutting something you just want to get 2/3 of it, you're fine. But you get close to it, it'll go fast. And you can see how we get here. So we want to get all of this. And we're about an hour in from our short ribs being done. And see, we've got this completely fine. And no worry about cutting our hands on this. So that's, or you can use a knife and you're fine. We're gonna caramelize these onions. Go ahead and start my pan. Now we're gonna cook these on low to medium. Do not cook these like you're cooking them for a hamburger or to go on top of a steak. We're gonna caramelize. I actually did a video on this, and it takes, to do these right, you're talking 30, 40 minutes, and some people take longer than that because you want to bring out the natural sugars from the onions, and you don't want to cook them from the outside, you want to cook them from the inside out, essentially. So I mean, what do you need, microwave them? I don't know. Anyhow, no, you want to cook these, take your time with this. I'm going to use almost 3/4 of a stick of butter, probably more than that, and I'm going to put a little bit of oil also. And by the way, while we're waiting on this, as I've told you in videos before, if you make something that we've cooked on a video, and you send me a picture of it, I may put it on the video, and I'm going to do that now. I did acorn squash in the microwave. It's an older video, but it shows you how to do it very quickly without having to go in an oven and taking all that time. And actually, this is interesting because one of my former band kids did this actually for a group that we call the Best of Cooking at Home, and her name is June. And she made the acorn squash, and it was very festive, and it was for October, and we're going to put that picture on right now. And if you do something that I've cooked on a video, I might add your video or your photo on there as well. Okay, this is good. We're going to put all these onions in at once. Now, you could put this in a big stock pot or a Dutch oven that you're going to make the soup in ultimately, because this won't be enough room to cook the last 30 minutes. I'm going to turn this down because I don't want this to be too high. It would be better to undercook this and bring the temperature back up than to overcook it and put any burning on this. We want to stir these quite frequently. We're going to bring all the moisture out. And a little bit of pepper. All right, this is at the 10-minute mark. All right, so this is at the 20-minute mark, and they're just slightly yellowed. If they're brown right now at 20 minutes, you are cooking them too hot. So turn it down, because these are barely turning yellow. So now we're at the 30-minute mark, and they're just starting to get a little golden, okay? Just a little bit. After 30 minutes. We are at the 40-minute mark, and you could actually use these now, but it wouldn't be as good. They're getting golden brown now, but they're not there yet. But could you use them? You could. But we're gonna go ahead and go another 10 minutes anyhow and see where we are. So we've been 3 hours on the braised ribs. We're ready to pull these out. All right, let's have a look at these. What do you think? Look at those. Those are right. I can tell you right now, those are right. For these, now I did forget to say that I also put in here, I cut a head of garlic in half and put the larger half in the pot. That's the only other thing I didn't mention. Look at that juice. We don't, I might have to strain it. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that. And when I say falling off the bone, tender, I mean falling off the bone. And we want to pull some of that grease off because we don't want that. So I'm just going to come here like this, take the top of it off. All right, so we got most of the grease off of that, and we're going to now take the broth that we made, and I'm going to strain that right on in here. And then we're going to check how much liquid, and we'll check our salt. And we've got to check for salt. It'll thin out a little bit with the onions. And I'm also going to put in 3/4 of a cup of sherry, which will also thin down a little bit of that salt, because I know you don't like the salt too much. And look at these onions. Those look good. Those are right. All right, this is French bread. You could use sourdough. And I'm cutting this at about a little more than a 1/2 inch. I'm gonna put them in the oven at about 400 with a little bit of olive oil on them. And it's already on 325, so we're gonna go ahead and put them in. About 10 minutes. We're almost at the home stretch here. So the Swiss cheese we're going to cut up into small pieces, and then the Parmesan we are going to grate. Need to get my Swiss cheese ready. We want to get it pulled pretty well. Whoa, that is slippery. All right, look at this. Does that not look good? Ah. I'm going to put a little bit of the Parmesan in the soup itself. So we'll get our little croutons, and we're going to let it hang over the side on purpose. The fork. Let's get that in about the middle. That's good. This would have looked better, of course, if I'd have done it earlier. Now 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm gonna just put some fresh, and I do mean fresh, I just got these fresh chives. Picked them out of the garden. All right. Oh, man. Ah, that is so good. Get some onions. Look at that cheese. Look at that. You got cheese all over you. That's good. I'm happy with this.
That's good.
That's absolutely good. Hey, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. And if you comment, I'll respond to you. And if you post a picture, I may use your picture like I did in this video. And I'll see you next time on Lawyer in the Kitchen.